You already know more than you think. The problem isn't a lack of knowledge, it's that you haven't yet been taught how to see. Human beings are like open books, but most people never learn how to read the language written between the lines. Every glance, every pause, every hesitation, every shift in tone, these are the clues people leave behind. Nietzsche believed that if you can learn to read these signs, you'll uncover truths about others and about yourself that most of the world never dares to face. What you're about to hear isn't meant to be consumed casually. It's not a list of quick tips or surface-level advice. It's a complete breakdown, layer by layer, truth by truth, each piece building on the last. If you skip ahead, you'll lose the very depth that makes it powerful. But if you stay with me until the end, you will walk away with a new lens. You won't just understand people better, you'll understand the hidden parts of yourself you've been blind to all along. From the time you were a child, you were trained to trust language. To listen when people spoke and assume their words matched reality. Words became the currency of human exchange, what you relied on to measure honesty, connection, and meaning. But Nietzsche warned us not to be fooled. Words rarely reveal who a person truly is. Words are masks. They are shields. They are strategies. They are tools of survival. When people speak, they often speak not from truth, but from fear. From ego. From a desperate need to belong. Think about it. The person who showers the world with endless kindness may not be kind at all. They may be terrified of rejection, so they overcompensate. The person who walks through life with unshakable strength may not be strong, they may be fragile, praying no one ever sees the cracks. And the unsettling part? Most people don't even know they're doing it. They're not lying to you, they're lying to themselves. They are actors on a stage, reading lines from a script they didn't even write. Their gestures, their laughter, their smiles, their opinions, they were all shaped by what once kept them safe. This is why Nietzsche once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." He didn't mean it as an insult. He meant it as a warning. Don't mistake the mask for the person. Because the mask is not the truth, it's the armor. But here's the paradox, no mask is perfect. No matter how carefully someone builds it, it always slips. And when it slips, the truth leaks out. Not in words, but in cracks. In the way their eyes dart away when something cuts too close. In the laughter that lingers just a moment too long. In the sudden need to change the subject the instant it touches a nerve. These are the cracks where the truth shines through. The first truth Nietzsche offers is simple, yet devastating: everyone wears a mask. They don't wear it because they're fake. They wear it because they're scared. Scared of judgment. Scared of rejection. Scared of being seen as they really are. To survive, people create a version of themselves they hope the world will accept. But no mask holds forever. So if you want to see who someone really is, don't focus only on their words. Watch for the tension. Watch for the discomfort. That's where the real person begins. And once you see this, the second truth becomes clear. What people hate in others reveals what they're hiding in themselves. Nietzsche saw this pattern everywhere. It's called projection. A person who cannot stop mocking arrogance may secretly fear they are worthless. The one who constantly attacks liars may be hiding a truth they're too ashamed to admit. The harsh judgment people place on others often mirrors the secret battles they are too afraid to face in themselves. That's why when you want to read someone, you can't only look at who they admire, you must look at what they condemn. Their criticism is often a confession in disguise. Then comes silence. Nietzsche believed silence reveals more than any words ever could. He did not see language as a path to truth. To him, language was the tool of the herd, used to protect illusions and avoid reality. This means that the moments people fall silent are not empty, they are overflowing. A pause, a hesitation, a subject someone avoids, these silences often tell you more than anything they could have spoken aloud. When you begin to notice these truths, your vision changes. Suddenly, the world doesn't look the same. People around you, people you've known for years, begin to appear in a new light. You notice their masks. You see the weight of the armor they carry. You feel the tension when they hide, and you hear the truths hidden in the quiet. And it's not just about understanding them, it's about understanding yourself. Because you wear masks too. You project too. You fall into silence when the truth feels unbearable. Nietzsche's wisdom is not comfortable, but it is liberating. It shows us that human beings are not what they appear to be, and neither are we. And once you learn to see this, you can never return to blindness. When someone pauses before they answer you, when their eyes shift away or their words shrink into short, rehearsed lines, what they aren't saying is louder than what they are. A silence like that is not empty. It's full, overflowing with fear, with hesitation, with truths they can't let escape. People think that silence protects them, but in reality, it exposes them. The things we avoid speaking about reveal the exact things we are most afraid to confront. Every pause, every dodge, every clipped reply is a confession without words. Nietzsche noticed this pattern in all human beings. We are creatures terrified of being seen. And so we cover ourselves. Some of us cover with silence, but others cover with noise. One of the noisiest masks of all is virtue. Think about the person who never stops preaching about their morality, who constantly reminds others of their purity, who always needs to correct, to advise, to stand on a pedestal. On the surface, it seems noble, almost holy. But look deeper, and you'll often find vanity disguised as goodness. It's not real virtue, it's performance. Nietzsche saw morality itself twisted into a weapon of power. When someone needs you to know how righteous they are, it's rarely about goodness, it's about superiority. And the louder that performance becomes, the more certain you can be that something dark is hiding behind it. Because true goodness doesn't announce itself. Real virtue is quiet. It doesn't need applause, it doesn't seek validation, it simply exists. And then there are the lies people tell. But here's the part that stings: the first person they lie to isn't you, it's themselves. Think of all the small sentences you've heard, maybe even spoken yourself. I'm fine. I'm over it. I don't care. Those aren't attacks, not attempts to trick others. They are shields. Lines rehearsed so many times that the speaker almost believes them. Nietzsche understood this as self-deception, not out of malice, but as a survival tactic. To face the full weight of truth is unbearable for many. So they invent stories they can live inside, like fragile houses that keep the storm away. That's why when someone's story doesn't add up, don't assume they're deliberately manipulating you. Recognize instead that they've been practicing that story for years, maybe decades, just to stay alive in their own skin. And if you listen closely, you'll notice something: the gaps, the contradictions, the moments where their body betrays their words. These cracks aren't mistakes. They are escape routes for the truth. Superiority works much the same way. Whenever you meet someone who constantly feels the need to be above others, someone who never misses a chance to prove their greatness, remember this. The stronger they cling to superiority, the deeper their fear of inferiority runs. Nietzsche saw superiority not as strength but as overcompensation. The man who brags endlessly about his achievements, who reminds you of them again and again, is often terrified he isn't good enough. The woman who cuts others down casually, as if it costs her nothing, is usually frightened of being overlooked. Real confidence doesn't need to compete. It doesn't remind you of its existence. It simply radiates. That is why those who dominate, control, or shout the loudest often reveal the weakest parts of themselves. Look past the crown, and you'll often find not a king or queen, but a scared child pretending to rule. This is the heart of what it means to read people. It is not about judgment. It is not about catching lies or collecting power. It is about seeing beneath the armor. When someone interrupts too often, it may not be arrogance at all. It may be the fear that if they don't speak now, they'll be forgotten. When someone fills their social feed with endless images of joy, it may not be celebration, it may be a cry for help hidden behind forced smiles. When someone avoids your eyes as they tell you I'm fine, listen to their body, not their words. Because the truth doesn't hide in what's said. It hides in what's resisted. And when you begin to see people this way, something changes in you. You stop resenting them for their masks. You stop hating them for their armor. You begin to realize that what you're seeing in them is a reflection of what's in you. Because you too have worn masks. You too have lied to yourself just to get through the day. You too have acted stronger than you felt, happier than you were, calmer than the storm inside. Nietzsche's point was never to give you a weapon to strip people down. His point was to free you from being fooled by appearances, and to open your eyes to deeper connection. Think back to your own life. Think of the moment you saw someone's mask slip. It might have been the way their voice cracked when they swore they were fine. It might have been the second their smile fell away before they forced it back on. It might have been a silence that hung so heavy you could feel the truth pressing down in it. These moments are not random. They are not accidents. They are human cracks, and through those cracks you glimpse the real person inside. And once you learn to see them, you'll understand something profound: people are not impossible to read. They're not complicated mysteries. They're just terrified of being seen. In the beginning, we saw how masks are built, how personas are crafted for survival. But as we move deeper, we step into the space where those masks begin to break. Nietzsche believed the self is not something solid or permanent. It is not a fixed identity. It is a performance, a fragile role stitched together out of habits, fears, and survival strategies. And when that performance is threatened, when the stage feels shaky, the truth begins to bleed through. Almost every action people take, no matter how polished, no matter how convincing, has fear somewhere at its root. Most actions, Nietzsche said, are driven not by strength, not by freedom, but by unconscious fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being exposed. And the more you begin to see this, the more the world around you changes. Look closely at the people around you, and you'll notice patterns you've been taught to ignore. Why does someone over-explain? Why do they dominate every conversation or, at times, disappear entirely? Why do they say yes when it's clear their heart says no? The answer, almost always, is fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of rejection. Fear of humiliation. Fear of failing. Nietzsche understood that human behavior rarely comes from pure desire or true intention. Most of what we do is motivated by the deep, quiet terror of losing something: status, love, respect, control, or even a sense of self. When you want to truly understand someone, don't just pay attention to what they say they want. Ask instead, what are they afraid of losing? That is where the truth lives. Criticism is another window into the human soul. When someone constantly criticizes others, it's rarely about the people they target. It's about themselves. The man who mocks emotional vulnerability may be terrified of his own feelings. The woman who belittles others for their appearance may be fighting a private war with her own reflection. Nietzsche believed that judgment is almost always projection. What someone points out in others often reveals the part of themselves they cannot accept. Projection is more than a defense, it's a confession. Listen closely, and you can trace the words, the ridicule, the harsh opinions back to the pain hiding inside them. Criticism is never random. It's a roadmap to fear, insecurity, and unresolved guilt. And then there is confidence. You have met the people who appear always calm, always in control, always unshakably certain. But if you watch long enough, you notice the little cracks, the jaw clenched too tight, the over-preparation, the quick defensiveness when challenged. Nietzsche observed that much of what looks like confidence is actually guilt in disguise. Leaders, teachers, preachers, even friends who perform certainty do so because they are afraid of being seen. They carry regrets, failures, or doubts they are trying desperately to hide. Real peace does not perform. It does not need to be broadcast. So when someone seems excessively confident, do not be intimidated. Instead, be curious. Look beneath the surface and see what they are trying to conceal, what fears and past mistakes they are carrying like a shadow. Exaggeration works in much the same way. When someone insists, "I don't care what anyone thinks," they usually care deeply. When they say, "I'm always happy," they rarely are. Nietzsche saw exaggeration as the ego's attempt to drown out doubt, to silence insecurity, to convince themselves and everyone else that they are whole and untroubled. Extremes are rarely signs of strength, they are signs of imbalance. The louder someone proclaims something absolute, the more likely it conceals something fragile beneath. Exaggeration is volume. And the question to ask is, what fear, what insecurity, are they trying to silence? Control functions in the same shadowed way. Some people try to control everything, their relationships, their jobs, every detail of their surroundings. But this is not a sign of inner strength. It is a sign of inner chaos. Nietzsche saw clearly that when someone's inner world is disordered, they attempt to manage the outer world obsessively. Micromanagement, domination, rigidity, they are not signs of power. They are signs of fear. Someone who dominates, who obsesses, who cannot tolerate change, is terrified that if they release their grip, everything will collapse. The stricter the outer shell, the more fragile the inner self. And then there is performance, the most haunting mask of all. Nietzsche saw it everywhere, and in our modern world, it is impossible to ignore. Endless social media posts, carefully curated images, the constant demand for attention and approval, the look-at-me energy that permeates every corner of life. Nietzsche did not see these performances as strength. He saw them as desperation. People perform because they do not believe they will be seen or loved without it. They manufacture noise, color, and drama to cover the silence and emptiness inside. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. When you begin to notice these patterns, everything changes. You stop seeing only the surface. You see the masks and the cracks, the defenses and the fears. You begin to understand that much of what people do is not about you, it's about surviving themselves. Over-explaining, dominating, disappearing, agreeing when they mean no, criticizing, exaggerating, controlling, performing, it is all driven by fear. Fear of being invisible, unloved, abandoned, or exposed. And as you start to recognize these patterns, something profound happens within you. Compassion grows. Judgment fades. You realize that the masks you see are not flaws, they are survival tools. They are the ways human beings protect themselves from the world and from their own fragility. Reading people, then, is not about power. It is not about manipulation. It is about understanding, connection, and seeing beneath the surface without shattering it. It is noticing the pauses, the criticisms, the exaggerations, the controlling behaviors, the performances, and understanding the fear that drives them. Every human action, no matter how polished, has roots in insecurity. Every mask hides vulnerability. And once you start seeing this, the world becomes richer, more complex, more human. People are no longer mysterious or unreachable. They are fragile, complicated, scared, yet endlessly alive. And as you learn to recognize these truths, you will see the world differently. You will begin to understand that almost every behavior, every action, every mask is a plea for survival. That the moments when words fail, when silence stretches too long, when a smile falters or a gaze slides away, these are the moments where the real self leaks through. And the deeper you look, the more you understand that behind every fear-driven behavior, every mask and performance, there is a human being trying, in the only way they know how, to navigate a world that feels unpredictable, harsh, and unforgiving. The person who truly knows themselves doesn't need to be watched. They don't need approval, applause, or recognition. They are already complete, already whole. Everything they do flows from that inner certainty, not from a need to perform. But most people do not live like this. Most people are performing all the time on social media, at work, in their friendships, even in their most intimate relationships. And it's not a show of power. It's a whisper of need. A quiet cry that goes unnoticed unless someone is paying attention. And that is the shift. Once you start seeing these patterns, the world changes. You walk into a room and suddenly, actions speak louder than words. You notice someone interrupting constantly, and you understand it's not arrogance, it's fear. Fear of being invisible, of being forgotten, of not mattering. You see someone boasting endlessly, always pointing out their achievements, and you sense a hidden wound, a scar they try to cover with pride. You are not reading minds, you are reading masks. Nietzsche gave you the flashlight to see through them, to recognize the patterns that the untrained eye misses. But this clarity is a responsibility, not a trick. Once you begin to see people clearly, you cannot unsee it. You start to understand that most of the smiles, the gestures, the confident performances you encounter are carefully constructed shields hiding quiet suffering. Reading people is not about gaining leverage or power, it's about offering grace. When you see the frightened child behind the harsh critic, the fear behind the bully, or the guilt behind the arrogant, you do not become weaker. You become grounded, unshakable, capable of understanding the fragile human heart. By now, something inside you is shifted. You no longer just see people, you read them. Not as villains, not as victims, but as humans trying to survive, often in masks they did not choose and do not fully understand themselves. And yet, the surface is only the beginning. People rarely speak from logic. They speak from pain. You might assume people argue based on facts or make decisions using reason. Nietzsche believed otherwise. Every logical argument is built upon emotional wounds. Someone might say, love is meaningless. It's just a fantasy. But they are not stating a fact, they are protecting themselves from a hurt they have known. People form their beliefs and opinions based on what broke them, then dress those views in reason to make them seem logical. If you want to understand someone, don't just ask what they believe, ask what broke them. Ask what they fear feeling again. Ask what they are desperate to avoid. When you see that, suddenly arguments are not attacks, and defenses are not barriers, they are shields. And when you see that, you stop reacting and start understanding. True power and character, Nietzsche taught, reveal themselves not through dominance, but in the way someone treats weakness. To see a person's heart, don't watch how they treat those who can fight back. Watch how they treat those who cannot. Real strength is restraint. A person who mocks vulnerability is afraid of their own. Someone who punishes mistakes harshly likely grew up in a world that punished theirs. A person who always wins but leaves others bleeding is still at war with themselves. But the person who can witness weakness without judgment, who can sit with sadness without fleeing, who can forgive when they could punish, this person is free. They have already won the inner war. Everything you have learned so far about over-explaining, boasting, criticizing, exaggerating, controlling, performing is a map of fear, insecurity, and survival. Over-explaining hides anxiety. Boasting hides wounds. Criticism hides pain. Exaggeration hides doubt. Obsessive control hides chaos inside. Performance hides emptiness. And when you begin to see these patterns, you start to understand that all human behavior, even the loudest, the most irritating, the most aggressive, is driven by the same forces: fear, pain, and the desperate hope to be seen and loved. Control, in particular, is often misunderstood. Some people need to control everything: their work, their relationships, every small detail of life. But this is rarely strength. It is fear of inner chaos. Nietzsche noticed that when a person's inner world is turbulent, they try to manage the outer world obsessively. Micromanagement, domination, rigid routines, they are signs of fragility, not power. The stricter the outer shell, the more vulnerable the inner self. When you meet someone who controls everything, don't fear them. See them for what they are, someone terrified that if they let go, everything will fall apart. And performance, the most haunting mask of all, reveals desperation like nothing else. Nietzsche saw it everywhere, and today it is magnified. Social media is full of curated lives, endless photos, constant updates, every post shouting, "Look at me, see me, acknowledge me." Nietzsche did not see this as strength. He saw it as a cry for validation, a desperate attempt to convince the world and themselves that they are whole. People perform because they do not believe they will be seen, loved, or accepted without it. They create noise, drama, and spectacle to cover the quiet emptiness inside. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. And so the final truth emerges: the soul is visible if you know how to look. Behind every mask, every behavior, every exaggerated claim, every act of control, every proud performance, there is a story. A story of wounds, of fear, of hope, and of survival. Nietzsche didn't just expose the patterns, he revealed the origin of the patterns. He illuminated the emotional logic beneath every word, every argument, every silence. He showed that almost all human behavior is shaped by past wounds, unhealed pain, and the constant effort to survive in a world that often feels cruel and unpredictable. When you begin to see this, you don't just read people, you understand them. You understand that their arrogance is often fear, their criticism is often pain, their control is often chaos, and their performance is often desperation. You begin to understand yourself in ways you never did before, because you see the same masks, the same fears, and the same wounds reflected in your own life. You begin to see that humans are fragile, scared, and endlessly complex, but also capable of compassion, resilience, and grace. And with this understanding comes a kind of freedom. When you witness the child behind the critic, the fear behind the bully, the guilt behind the proud, you do not feel powerless. You feel steady. You feel unshakable. You feel capable of responding with patience, empathy, and wisdom. Reading people is not about manipulation or control, it is about connection, about grace, about seeing the soul hidden behind every mask. And when you can see the soul, you can see the world differently. You can see the fragility, the beauty, and the endless human struggle to survive and be seen. From the moment we are born, we are learning to survive. We are taught to trust words, to believe what people say. But Nietzsche saw deeper. Humans rarely speak from truth. They speak from survival, from fear, from ego. What we see on the surface, the smiles, the confidence, the words of certainty, is often a carefully constructed mask. The person who seems overly kind may be terrified of rejection. The one who seems strong may be crumbling inside. And most of the time, they don't even realize they are performing. They are actors in a play they didn't write. Their smiles, their gestures, their opinions, all shaped by what kept them safe. They aren't hiding from you, they're hiding from themselves. The first truth is simple: everyone wears a mask to survive. Not because they are fake, but because they are afraid. They create a version of themselves they hope will be accepted, but no mask is perfect. It slips. And the first sign of truth is tension. Watch for what makes someone uncomfortable. That is where the real person begins. The second truth: what someone hates in others often reveals what they fear in themselves. Projection is everywhere. Someone who mocks arrogance may be terrified of their own insecurity. Someone who constantly calls out dishonesty is hiding truths they refuse to face. We hate in others what we cannot admit in ourselves. So when you observe someone, look not just at what they admire, but at what they criticize and why. Silence is a third truth. People reveal more in what they don't say than in what they do. When someone pauses before answering, dodges a topic, or gives short, rehearsed replies, that silence is louder than speech. Avoidance reveals fear. Fourth, excessive virtue can hide vanity. Be wary of those who loudly proclaim their goodness, who correct everyone, who constantly preach. Nietzsche called this the will to power in disguise. True goodness does not need applause. The fifth truth is profound: people lie to themselves before they lie to you. The stories they tell, "I'm fine, I'm over it, I don't care," are rehearsed so often they begin to believe them. Self-deception is not evil, it is a defense mechanism, a way to survive. These lies reveal themselves in inconsistencies, and if you learn to read them, you can find the truth. Sixth, where someone feels superior, they are often hiding inferiority. Those who constantly remind you of their achievements or put others down are usually terrified of being overlooked. Real confidence doesn't need to compete. Look past the throne to the scared child wearing the crown. 7. Most human actions are driven by fear. Over-explaining, dominating, disappearing, saying yes when they mean no, all of it is fear of loss, rejection, humiliation, or failure. So when you observe someone, don't just ask what they want. Ask what they are afraid of losing. That is where truth resides. 8. Repeated criticism is projection. The person who mocks emotional people may be terrified of their own feelings. Judgment is rarely about the other, it's about the self. 9. Confidence can hide guilt. Those who always appear composed, in control, and sure of themselves may be burying regrets or shame. Real peace does not perform. 10. Exaggeration reveals hidden truths. Those who claim, "I don't care what anyone thinks," often care deeply. Those who insist, "I'm always happy," are masking doubt. Extremes are rarely strength, they are signals of insecurity. 11. Those who crave control often fear inner chaos. Micromanagement, domination, rigidity, all signs that someone is terrified their inner world will collapse if they let go. 12. Performance is emptiness in disguise. Social media, constant updates, curated lives, these are desperate attempts to be seen, to be acknowledged, to prove worth. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. 13. People speak from pain, not logic. Every argument, every opinion, every defense shields a wound. Someone may insist love is meaningless, but they are protecting themselves from heartbreak. To understand someone, ask what scared them, what broke them, what they fear repeating. Their words are shields, not attacks. 14. How someone treats weakness shows their true power. Watch how they treat those who cannot fight back. Mockery, punishment, or cruelty often reflects their own unresolved pain. But those who can witness vulnerability with patience and compassion have won the inner war. 15. Fear of being forgotten drives attention-seeking. Those who constantly need to be noticed are often haunted by the pain of being ignored. The child who is unseen becomes the adult who demands recognition through performance, drama, or chaos. Attention is not always vanity, it can be a cry for love. 16. The person they attack is often the person they envy. Criticism is easier than admiration. The person tearing someone else down often secretly longs for what they cannot have. Seeing this in others makes you immune to petty hate, seeing it in yourself brings freedom. 17. People act out their childhood, not their beliefs. Behavior is biography. The person who was never heard may never listen. The person punished for emotions may become cold and detached. The child who had to earn love may perform endlessly for it as an adult. Behind every adult is a child still searching for safety. 18. Patterns are confessions. People may not know how to speak about their pain, but their actions reveal it. Ghosting, overworking, flirting without connecting, these are not random habits. They are messages saying, "This is how I protect myself. This is where I was hurt. This is what I fear repeating." If you listen to patterns, not words, you can hear the truth before it is spoken. And when you do, something amazing happens. You stop personalizing. You stop judging. You start understanding. You become a mirror, not a weapon. You see clearly and still choose compassion. And here lies the final lesson: understanding others is understanding yourself. Every truth we explored is not just about them, it is about you, your fears, your patterns, your childhood. The clearer you see others, the clearer you see yourself. Everything you judge in others is something you carry. Everything you admire is something you long to embody. This is not the end. It is the beginning of a new way of seeing, a new way of living. Nietzsche didn't want us to simply observe, he wanted us to awaken. To recognize the masks, the wounds, the patterns, and still choose grace. To read people with clarity and compassion. To remember ourselves in the process. And now, if you truly pay attention, the world changes. You no longer see only surface behaviors. You see the fear, the pain, the invisible scars. You see the child behind the critic, the guilt behind the proud, the loneliness behind the performer. And when you see this, you are no longer powerless. You are steady. You are unshakable. You are awake.